first we're going to cover how Buydown programs work, what some of the numbers and the titles for each program mean, and what are the mechanics of the actual Buydown program, and then I'll go through all of the numbers. So I'm using my blog post as kind of a starting point because I have a lot of information in here. I published it, well, I updated it 4 days ago, but I published it last November when these Buydown programs started to become kind of popular when interest rates were high. And that's really when these programs are most beneficial, is when interest rates are kind of high, so that you can still shop around, you can still buy a house. It's just a way to get a temporary reduction in your monthly payment. And notice that I say temporary. This is not a long-term solution to getting a reduced interest rate. Okay, so whenever I wrote this, interest rates were in the 7s, sometimes even 8s, and Buydown programs were coming out. So Buydown programs are titled, and you're gonna see usually 2 numbers listed in the title. You'll see a number, a hyphen, or a slash, and then you're gonna see a second number. What each of these numbers represent is how much of a interest rate reduction you're gonna get in each year. So the reduction that you're gonna get an interest rate for the first year for a 2-1 Buydown program is going to be 2% in the first year. So if you have a 7% interest rate, original interest rate on your loan, it's going to be reduced down to 5% for that first full year after purchasing the home. Then for the second year, you're going to have a 1% reduction in interest rate. If you have a 1-0 Buydown program, then you're getting 1% interest reduction for only the first year and no reduction for the second year. So usually these programs are only going to be, like I said, a temporary reduction in interest rate just for the first 1 to 2 years of your mortgage after you make the purchase. And what's really cool about these programs is a lot of times they are actually paid by seller concessions, so they're paid by the seller and not necessarily by the buyer. The buyer can pay it, it just kind of defeats the purpose, and when I go through the numbers that'll make a lot more sense. So here's what a breakdown of the numbers actually look like. So here I'm comparing the reduction in monthly payment when using a Buydown program or getting a reduction in the purchase price, which is going to result in a reduction in the loan value and how much you have to put down. As a buyer, I feel like it's really important to see all of these numbers so that you get a full picture of kind of the pros and cons of a Buydown program, not just the pros. The example that I'm going to show you here of the numbers breakdown, I'm using a house that is listed at $300,000 and you're purchasing it at $300,000 in the first example, and these are the same numbers that I run in the blog post example, so this is just the Excel sheet that I use to get those numbers. So you're purchasing a house for $300,000 and you're putting 10% down on the house, and that's also going to remain consistent with each one of these examples that I run. So your loan value is going to be 90% of that. So 90% of 300 is going to be 270. At a 7.5% interest rate, and I'm just using a mortgage calculator that I really like to use. In order to get this, I'm not calculating the monthly payment myself. The monthly payment is going to be around $1,800 a month. So let's say that you request a 2-1 Buydown program. So that means in the first year, you're going to get a 2% decrease in interest rate. So what that actually means is you're calculating the reduction in monthly payment that you would be paying if the loan were 2% lower than its original value. So what I did was I used that same mortgage calculator and I said, okay, for the same loan value, but 5.5% interest, so a 2% reduction from the 7.5% original interest, the monthly payment would actually be around $1,500, a little bit less. Then these two numbers are subtracted to get the difference between them, which is the savings per month. And then what the Buydown does is it calculates, okay, so this is your savings per month multiplied by 12, obviously, then you get your savings per year. And this is the value that is technically being bought with the Buydown program. So I'll go through the numbers for the second year on a 2-1 Buydown program, and then I'll talk about how the full cost is kind of added up. So on the same example with the $300,000 purchase price, 10% down, $270,000 loan amount, in the second year you're getting 1% reduction in interest rate, so 6.5%, and your monthly payment is going to be around $1,700 rather than the a little over $1,800, almost $1,900. So your monthly savings in this year with a 1% reduction is almost $200 a month, and your savings for the year is a little over $2,000. So if you are purchasing, or the seller is purchasing for you, the 2-1 Buydown program, then you add these two numbers together, your savings from the first year and the second year, and this is essentially the cost of the Buydown program. So along the same lines, if you are requesting a 1-0 Buydown program, really all you're doing is these numbers. So you're getting a 1% reduction in the first year and then no reduction in the second year. So your payment for the first year would only be, it would be around $1,700 rather than the almost $1,900. This is your savings per month. This is how much it would cost for the year. And this number here is actually the number that is going to have to be paid in order to purchase that Buydown program. So this number is more easily negotiable than it is to try to negotiate the purchase price down. So in order to match the monthly payment of the 1% reduced interest rate, you would have to reduce the purchase price all the way to $270,000. And your loan value would end up being $243,000. So the obvious benefits of reducing the purchase price is you're putting less money down, even with the 10% down, and you're reducing the actual starting loan value, which means that you're gonna pay less for the house over the 30-year, usually, mortgage. So that's the obvious benefit of just reducing the purchase price, but that's extremely difficult to do in a seller's type market that we're in right now, and we have been in for a while. So if you're primarily concerned about that monthly payment rather than the payment over the lifetime of the loan, then the Buydown program is really the way to go, because what seller is going to reduce that purchase price by $30K just to save you almost $200 a month? I don't think that you're going to find a lot of sellers who are going to reduce their list price by 10%. And then even more shocking is in order to get that 2% reduced monthly payment, you would actually have to reduce the purchase price all the way to $245,000, which is $55,000 off of the original list price, and that's a lot. So I even say down here, that's almost a sixth of the original list price. And so I think it's going to be really difficult in order for someone to negotiate down the purchase price from the list price that significantly, unless there is like something really disastrous wrong with the house. So your best bet, if your primary concern is with your monthly payment, especially in the first couple years, is to negotiate the seller to pay one of these Buydown programs versus trying to negotiate down the purchase price in order to lower your monthly payment. And some of the reasons why you may want to use a Buydown program versus just waiting for interest rates to come down is, obviously, when interest rates come down, then there is a rush to the market, and everybody else also wants to take advantage of those reduced interest rates. And then you get home values skyrocketing, and it becomes even more of a seller's market, and it's even more difficult to negotiate with them, even to list price and not paying above list price. So this enables you to get a temporary break on your interest rate and your monthly payment, at least for the first couple years while you're starting out. And I mean, think of the first couple years that you were in a house, and really every time that we buy a new house, we have to make an adjustment. Even the last house that we bought, it was our second house, and we had to buy a new mower. We had to buy a water softener because the house didn't come with one. I mean, just in those first like couple years, you're adjusting to a new house, even if it's not your first house, and you're having to buy new things like and invest in new stuff to tailor your life to that house. And especially for first-time home buyers, this is a great option, because what first-time home buyer has a lawnmower or has a ladder, or maybe you're buying a fixer-upper and you want to move in and you want to paint every room. So this enables you to have a little bit of a break for the first couple years while you're first adjusting to having a home. So full disclosure, I am not a lender, I'm not a loan officer, I really don't have any financial background. I have just experienced these from a real estate agent and a consumer myself, and I think that there are new products that come out on the market all the time, and people just, like, the general population just either doesn't understand them or they don't know about them. So I find that it's really helpful, and one of the reasons why I started my blog was to educate people on some of the options that are out there, because you really don't know the questions to ask if you don't know all of the options that are available to you. Yeah, so that's really the full description of Buydown programs. So if you have any questions, feel free to put your questions in the comments section, or to email me or contact me directly. I would love to hear from you if this was helpful. Any recommendations you may have, or if you've used one of these programs and you have some feedback for anyone who is viewing this. But thank you for listening, and I will be covering more real estate topics in the future, so I hope to see you back here.